have you heard about Z?
ZZ.
𝐊𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐶.
Easy.
Mobile banking. Crazy.
Education loans and salary advances.
Amazing.
Introducing the digital youth account. NDBZ. NDBZ from NDB Bank. The future is banking on us.
Creamy richness redefined. Smooth, soft, spreadable. Introducing Ultra Soft Fondue with canola and sunflower oil.
We searched the world for the finest things for you. Things like sun-kissed European berries, rich chocolate from the world's best cocoa fields, and crisp cashews and fluffy marshmallows in a quirky Australian recipe.
𝐊𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐶. Experience the world.
හැමදේම අතළඟ තියෙද්දි දුක් විඳින්නේ ඇයි?
Hey, have you heard about Z?
ZZ.
𝐊𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐶.
Easy.
Mobile banking. Crazy.
Education loans and salary advances.
Amazing.
Introducing the digital youth account. NDBZ. NDBZ from NDB Bank. The future is banking on us.
Creamy richness redefined. Smooth, soft, spreadable. Introducing Ultra Soft Fondue with canola and sunflower oil.
We searched the world for the finest things for you. Things like sun-kissed European berries, rich chocolate from the world's best cocoa fields, and crisp cashews and fluffy marshmallows in a quirky Australian recipe.
𝐊𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐶. Experience the world.
හැමදේම අතළඟ තියෙද්දි දුක් විඳින්නේ ඇයි?
Hey, have you heard about Z?
ZZ.
𝐊𝐴
Easy.
Mobile banking. Crazy.
Education loans and salary advances.
Amazing.
Introducing the digital youth account. NDBZ. NDBZ from NDB Bank. The future is banking on us.
Creamy richness redefined. Smooth, soft, spreadable. Introducing Ultra Soft Fondre with canola and sunflower oil.
We searched the world for the finest things for you. Things like sun-kissed European berries, rich chocolate from the world's best cocoa fields, and crisp cashews and fluffy marshmallows in a quirky Australian recipe.
𝐬𝐿 experience the world.
හැමදේම අතළඟ තියෙද්දි දුක් විඳින්නේ ඇයි?
All right, hello and welcome everyone. Episode 4 of the Rugby Show with Boa Athu live from Quadrangle. And we are back with week 3 of the Dialogue Schools Rugby League 2024 action. What turned out to be quite an eventful and entertaining week of rugby here in the school's rugby arena. Lots to talk about, many different results, many surprising results, and ultimately a big talking point for the entire Sri Lankan rugby community. All of it came up with the third week of this school season, and we'll discuss more about what happened in this segment of the game. We have a special guest coming in today, alongside our very own statspert Boa Athu, who will be engaging in a very fruitful discussion with the guest who I'll leave as a surprise until he comes in. So until that, let's get on with business. Let's talk about what happened in the past few days. And although we know that the next few days are filled with uncertainty, let's talk about how rugby has gone on in the school circuit for the past week. Good evening, or I believe it's very late in the night, Boa. Thank you for joining us on the show. What do you feel about the third week in general before we go into specific games?
Yeah, look, always a pleasure. It's a very, very early morning here. It's a very cold morning in Auckland. But of course, one of the highlights of the week. Looking forward to this show. So thank you for having me. A very good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining in. Yeah, look, I have to say I've got real mixed feelings about what happened. Always looking forward to the weekend's rugby, but obviously we probably had one of the darkest days in the local schoolboy first 15 competition last Sunday. Obviously, the incidents which took place, criminal, by the way, criminal thuggish activity, physical assault of referees, completely unacceptable. And this was carried out by a bunch of idiots who should never be allowed back into a rugby stadium or a park ever again. And of course, I hope the long arm of the law takes swift action, and we need to get on top of this. So first of all, I want to acknowledge the referees who are at the receiving end. It's terrible situation. And yeah, look, it's been a very eventful week. Lots happening, lots of chatter, lots of talk, lots to debate, I suppose. And of course, we got a special guest coming on as well. It's going to add some real spice to this show. But yeah, no, always great to be on the show, and thank you for having me.
Indeed, Boa. I too agree with you. It's not something that we see every week. What happened last weekend, and I believe it's up to the people's opinion to judge whether it's correct or wrong. But that being said, I believe it's always not fair or not just enough to manhandle the person in charge of the game. So I believe that should be looked upon as a very serious infringement of the spirit of the game rather than the rules or the law. It's something to do with the spirit of the game. But with that being said, I feel like our special guest, along with you, can have a much more detailed discussion. We'll talk about what the positive rugby that we've been having so far. So we'll start off with the games. We'll have a quick roundup of last week, which will be then followed by the special segment along with our guest for today. So to start off the season, to start off week 3 of the Dialogue Schools Rugby League, which was during the third episode of the Rugby Show with Boa Athu. Last week on Friday, we saw two games happening, one in Kandy and one in Colombo at Havelock Park. In Kandy, we had Vidyartha taking on Kingswood, a first half which seemed to be a pretty tightly contested game, ended being a lopsided game in favor of Vidyartha, taking away the win 50 points to 13. Kingswood in one of their worst forms in terms of their win streak, third season in a row where they haven't been able to manage to register a win, while Vidyartha is having a reminiscent season where they've been able to create quite an impact in terms of their performances, and a 50-point win at home is a massive boost. Boa, what do you think about this performance, and what forward for both of these schools who look to be in two very different ends of the spectrum?
Yeah, the Tigers, Vidyartha, very, very bullish. I think they're a bit of a renaissance. Last year they had a few results which didn't quite go their way. So they've really put the work in. And of course, a lot of focus off the field from the administrators. I saw a very interesting video clip which was circulating today as well. Lots of confidence. So look, good things happening up there. But the other side of the spectrum, or the other end, yeah, Kingswood, the school which actually started rugby, the very first school to start rugby in Sri Lanka. Yeah, they're in a bit of a hiding to nothing, and I think they really need a lot of help, a bit of revamp, and it's a tough place to be, particularly for their fans, because week in, week out they're just getting beat up, almost like the whipping boys. But they did show a little bit of courage and a little bit of spark, a bit of enterprise. Had a couple of tries scored, but ended up copying 50 points. So yeah, very much. I keep saying this for the last few weeks as well. They're very much on struggle street, and I think this season is going to be another very long season for them. But Vidyartha, on the other hand, they're bringing with confidence, and I'll be looking forward to this weekend, which is at the moment a little bit up in the air.
Indeed, Boa, but we all know the magical moments we've had with Kingswood, that the openers in 2020, after what sought out to be difficult seasons before that, Kingswood knew how to bounce back, and we just hope and pray that it comes sooner than later for Kingswood, and they have their sort of redemption within this season, or before it's ever too late for them. Next game, we had DS taking on St. Anthony's at Havelock Park. DS enjoying one of their best forms in the A division so far, or in the recent past, actually. 3 games unbeaten, 3 very heavy wins on their side, while St. Anthony is also going through a pretty rough patch, starting off the season with 3 consecutive losses. It looks like the season is slowly starting to take shape in certain sides' favor. So let's look at what Boa has to say regarding the DS versus St. Anthony's game, which we obviously did discuss a bit last weekend, but just to quickly add on.
DS this year are, to me, the most progressive side. By that I mean progressive is every week they seem to be having some improvement. They seem to be adding something onto their game. Last weekend, beg your pardon, we saw them resort to the rolling maul or the driving fishtail maul. It's not quite the royal fishtail maul, but that's real glimpses of that as a real weapon. And of course, St. Anthony's, again, another team from last year's form line. They've had a big slump, a big drift as far as that winning form line goes. But they did fire a few shots. I think they're just struggling to get some continuity. That's the key. Consistency with ruck recycle. But whereas DS, they seem to be very confident. Their body language is very good. And of course, they have some lethal backs, the back 3, particularly the 2 wingers and the fullback. They're very good at finishing. And of course, what I really like about them is that they can, from a standing start, really generate speed, real good pace. And there's no substitute for speed out wide. So 3-0. My question, of course, is, are they the real deal this year, or are they just a pretending contender? I guess that's a question which will be answered over the next few weeks. So I really enjoy watching this side, their supporters, their online presence. Wonderful stuff.
Definitely, Bo. I think it's the best time to be a DS fan, in my opinion, because for them it's been a road full of roses in terms of their win streak. But for St. Anthony's, 2 schools from the hills are actually struggling to get going or rather 3 schools are struggling to get going in this season. And it's only time will tell whether they'll actually rack up their first win in the recent future. But let's move on to one of the most exciting contests, one of the most looked up to contests that we had from last week. St. Peter's taking on Wesley College. St. Peter's at home. Wesley coming off of 2 brilliant wins after quite a few forgettable seasons. They're finally coming of age in this season. They're trying to build up their lost up reputation, and this was a much more sought after game. However, the Peterites showing why they are the undisputed champions. They bring on their fire game. A test, in my opinion, a proper test for the Peterites after 2 very lopsided wins. But they bring on their A game and try to win this battle as with a much higher gap than they could have expected. A 25-10 game in favor of St. Peter's College. St. Peter's rather having a better game in terms of their continuity and performance, while Wesley, they sort of did struggle in the conditions. Boa, do you think St. Peter's at home is probably one of the most lethal combinations you could see in schools rugby now?
They certainly are, when they really want to test their lateral attack and get the ball out wide. Look, last weekend I did say that St. Peter's needed to get tested because, they had 2 very lopsided games and they were putting on cricket score. So this game against Wesley, I think, is the exact tonic they needed, particularly in that first half. They were really tested, and what Wesley did really well was they took a leaf out of Royal's book and they brought that physicality up front. And soon as the forward pack as a unit tested St. Peter's skills as a forward pack, or their unit skills, they really struggled. The one thing Wesley didn't do was their ruck recycle, or the distribution from the halfback to the next phase, was just far too slow, far too slow. What it meant was, St. Peter's could defensively realign themselves. So they knew exactly what was coming up. But soon as that breakdown pressure came on, it actually rattled St. Peter's for at least that first half. And of course, Wesley kept their discipline. But soon as we came in the second half, I think St. Peter's realized that Wesley, one, don't have the conditioning and fitness. So they started speeding the game up. And Wesley's discipline. Now, I have to put a little asterisk here because I did see a plethora of penalties. It was almost a penalty a minute. And in my view, some of those penalties weren't really justified. There was a lot of penalties against Wesley for hands on the ruck, hands on the floor while rucking in the breakdown. And there's no real contest to the ruck, so there's no consequence to the play. But they were pinged, and their discipline was, nothing short of awful. And of course, there's some yellow cards as well. Again, were they justifiable? Probably not. I was struggling to look for reasons as to why. And there were some decisions which went both ways. I mean, St. Peter's were penalized as well. And I thought, it was just a bit of an overkill. So it was a messy second half. So what St. Peter's did was they sped up the game. Every time they got the ball, they attacked, they ran it wide. And as soon as they shifted laterally, those one-on-one matchups, as opposed to the unit matchups, just simply and utterly left Wesley in the dust. And boy, when the St. Peter's back division gets going, it's poetry in motion. Absolutely love it. Big, fast men condition. They've got the skill set. They've got those rocket passes as well. They've got that catching skill. So that really exposed the skill set, or the lack of skill set, the Wesley back division. They just couldn't defend. And I have to say, at certain points, it looked like defense was optional for Wesley, so that really let them down. But I have to say the scoreline probably flattered St. Peter's a little bit. The game, at least in that first half, was a lot closer. So it was a good fight, and I think the template Wesley gave the rest of the competition what the template is to push, test, and if someone can put it all together, probably end up beating St. Peter's. So no, it was a very interesting game. Didn't really enjoy the second half because it was just stop, start. But whenever St. Peter's got going, outstanding.
Indeed, Boa. I think St. Peter's have been, they've been drinking the magic potion, in my opinion. They've been doing the right things. They've been tested. But I think Coach 𝐷𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻 has been doing the right work with the boys, and they know how to get out of tough situations, which is a very big positive because a lot of school sides, I've experienced this firsthand, where when pressure piles on, it's the right team that makes the right decision in those smaller places that really come out on top. And I think St. Peter's had a lot of those moments, especially in the first half, but they just knew how well they could manage it. In their red zone, they understood it. But that being said, Wesley too knew they did go down with a fight. 25-10 doesn't really reflect the fight that Wesley put on. So in terms of the quality of the game, even though it was a stop-start affair, I feel like the game did offer a much more excitement, and it did live up to the excitement. The result might not be a complete reflection of what the game stood for. Anyway, we'll move on to the fourth game of the season. Now, Zahira College, celebrating their 100th year, started off with a brilliant campaign. The Zahira Centenary Sevens, they made it to the Cup semi-finals. They showed a lot of promise. They brought in a lot of experience from last year as well. But so far, they've just not been able to get going. They've been having 2 or I guess 3 home games. I'm not entirely sure. But they've been playing at home, and they've been playing good rugby, but they just can't get over the line. And I feel like that was the same result that they got in when Zahira took on Royal at Maradana with a scoreline of 7-34. Royal coming off of a very good away win, coming back into Colombo, playing another away game. Royal had it almost, everything was all right. But in Zahira's point of view, they have Coach Shamli Nawaz and the boys from Maradana still haven't found their groove in this year's competition. What do you think Zahira really needs to work on if they really want to make a lasting impact, at least in the latter half of the season?
It's a very simple formula. Zahira played very well in the opposition 22, and for them, the anchor point or the landmark. I use this term a lot when I coach and when I my commentary is 15 meters from touch. So once they park themselves close to that edge, particularly the right edge, they can get some strike moves going. Now we've seen them score some really nice tries from these strike moves, and I think they really need to focus on the territorial aspect. Stop overplaying in their own 22. Now we saw this against Royal, and Royal is a very good defensive unit. They bring the physicality. They know how to really shut attacks down. And Zahira overplayed a lot, and eventually they gave away the turnover, and then they got absolutely skinned on that. So I think it's a tactical issue more with Zahira. Technically, they will get better, but looking at some of the strike moves and some of the tries they scored, they've got strike power out wide. So it's just identifying what your strengths are, making sure you play in the right part of it. Now, I know this sounds really simple. I've been going on and on about this, but the reality is at this level of competition, this is not Super Rugby or Test level rugby. This is first 15 rugby in the island nation. So keep things really simple. Play a very simple game plan. Play what's in front. Play territory. And particularly against bigger, stronger, more physical sides, you got to make them run backwards. So to do that, and Zahira is historically they've been a very good footballing school. So they have the skill set. They have the kickers. So they just need to really understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and then execute a lot better. And once they get that right, they're going to be a legitimate threat.
Yes, indeed, Boa. I think we saw it with St. Joseph's as well, where Zahira just made it, and they just couldn't hold on to that lead, that small, slender lead. And I feel like you said, it's the smaller places that need deeper understanding, and you need to get out of those smaller ruts, the places where you don't expect to go your way. That's where you really have to work hard. And I feel like for Zahira, good things are just above the horizon, but they just have to work a bit more harder, in my opinion, to get there. In terms of Royal, they're having yet another good outing of a season, but in my opinion, Royal still didn't have their biggest test. I believe they still have to overcome the challenges of St. Peter's, St. Joseph's, and even Wesley. So they have a quite of a tough opposition coming up right now. They have to get ready for the second leg of the season. And in terms of how they've been playing their rugby, they shouldn't be worried too much, but only time will tell. And we really don't know what would go right or wrong for them. We just hope they continue their good form. Next up, we have Thurston taking on St. Joseph's College. Now, St. Joseph's starting off with quite a shocker of a defeat in their opening game. They've managed to bounce back with two really emphatic wins, particularly that game against Zahira. And now they're coming back to another game against Thurston, who St. Joseph's were the clear favorites going in, but they showed their resilience and their class in terms of how they really played that game. 47-9 is a really good scoreline for St. Joseph's. On Thurston's point of view, it's a situation where they have to really reassess and try and close that gap as further as possible. What do you think St. Joseph's have been doing right in terms of getting back on form, and what do you think they've improved on in the past few weeks?
The retention of possession, and of course, just comes down to mistakes. Like I said, at this level, you got to keep things really simple. You got to keep things really basic, because 9 times out of 10, the opposition, even if they know what you bring to the game, knowing what you are going to do and actually doing something about it are two completely different things. And being able to do it in chaos and under pressure in a game, so that's always the challenge. So I think St. Joseph's, that first half it wasn't the best, but then the second half they put everything together. And of course, Thurston, I have to give them kudos. They certainly listened to all the bit of advice I have been giving, which is take the points. They got 9 points on the board. They put pressure. They earned themselves some penalties. So, for them, it's just they've got to build on this because this is a real baptism of fire for them coming back into their division. And, it's a different ball game. And I think them and Sumangala are really learning that as we go. So things will improve. Hopefully they will be better for this experience. I know that's a very politically correct thing to say, but the reality is, much sterner tests lie ahead. I mean, can you imagine a side like Thurston having to play Royal? It's going to be tough. But as far as St. Joseph's go, I think they've minimized their mistakes. They're very good or getting better at recycling and retaining possession. The more possession they have, they can get those big boys up front into the game, put some phases together, and those points will come. So it's a bit of a learning as well. A couple of that early setback in the season would have really hurt, would have really stung them. So they're just on the comeback streak.
True, Bo. And I think as you said, the season is still not over, and there will be a race for you to survive in the A division. And I think the schools that will be seeking survival in this season, they still haven't finished their job. They're only getting started. So for them, it's a journey of now retaining themselves and trying and building up with the experience. And I believe this experience is going to be much more valuable in the seasons to come, both for the coaches and for the players and even the management teams to understand how A division rugby works.
One thing I want to say is I think with teams like Thurston, you've got to target certain games where you have a fair shot at winning it. Everything else, you've got to look at different goals. So for example, against Royal, you might say, look, let's see if we can improve in certain areas so we can test and try things out. And then, against some of the lesser ranked teams, you got to write. So that's a bit of planning, tacticality. I don't know, Coach Colin will probably be listening to this and he'll probably take some notes as well. So target, understand what your resources are, understand what you can and can't do, and then roll forward from there.
Definitely, Bo. And I think that's the beauty of the competition, where everyone has a fair shot at the game. And yeah, rugby is like that. One day you have your fair day, and the other day it's
Sure
in
is.
God's mercy. So next game we saw Isipathana playing at home again, hosting Dharmaraja, coming off of their first win, a rather runaway win in Bogambara against Sri Sumangala. However, this game turned out to be another lopsided affair. As I look at the scorecard, this whole season has been either a very few close games and a very large amount of lopsided games, which also might be a point of discussion much down the line. But in terms of this result as well, it was a 46 to 8 victory in favor of Isipathana. Isipathana, they too haven't been put to the test yet, but so far the start to the season has been quite beyond or on par with their expectations, which is to dominate. In terms of Dharmaraja's season has been on all sides of the spectrum. They've won a game pretty well, but they're also struggling to find a footing in much higher ranked against much higher ranked teams. What do you see as the season ahead for Dharmaraja, and then we'll get to Isipathana?
Again, with Dharmaraja, I think particularly with all teams, you've got to have a plan on which games you're going to target, which you think you can really win. And of course, you got to have with the tougher teams. What's your game plan? How are we going to go about it? So you've got to put a lot of planning into this, but the planning can't be too complicated. Just keep it really simple, because this is schoolboy first 15 rugby. And every week you got to try and improve. So I go back to that DS situation. The last 3 weeks we've seen different areas of the game improve. Okay, so I think that's a great blueprint for all these other teams. And depending on who you're playing next, have your game plan and work on certain aspects of the tactical side of the game and what skill sets you need. So, for example, if you're playing a side like Royal, they're a pretty big physical side, so you don't really want to get into that confrontational sort of thing. You got to try and move them around the park. So that's where tactical kicking comes in. You've got to try and play it at pace as much as you can. Um, and then, of course, every time you ruck, and this is a little tip for all you coaches out there against bigger physical sides, make sure you get right on top of them. And every time they have to stand up, they've got to pick themselves off the floor. They don't necessarily like that because that means, they're expending or extending more energy. So, it's little things like that. So I think Rajans will need to work on it. And of course, the goal kicking, I keep harping on about this every single opportunity. And I think last weekend, I didn't keep count, but there was well over a couple of hundred penalties blown right across all games. So if you bank enough for those penalties and kick them, I think we can get into, situations where they can pick up points. Whereas Isipathana goes very much under the radar. The fans have been very quiet, particularly after last season. But they did fire a few shots. And of course, there's been a situation where I guess I'll talk about it later in the show. A couple of yellow cards where there's a beautiful sliding chop tackle by their blindside flanker or the number 6. He rolls away east-west, and then the number 8 straight over. That's what we call a tackle and jackal. JNT, I call it JNT. Perfect execution of it. It's actually a very hard skill to coach and very hard skill to execute. Unfortunately, it was penalized wrongfully. And to make matters worse, it was yellow card, and then when it was questioned, there was another yellow card. So unfortunate, but mercifully, the scoreline was a bit of a blowout. And had this sort of thing happened in a tight game, yeah. Anyway, let's just kind of move on to the next part of the show.
Indeed, Boy. And I think it's the same case for both Royal and Isipathana in terms of their seasons ahead. They have a few tests coming up. Isipathana are yet to face Trinity and DS in their group. Royal are yet to face the tougher oppositions in their group. So maybe they're under the radar, but they come all guns blazing for the next few games. We really can't predict how these schools really go into it. But all we know is that the ultimate motto is about domination in the game. So yeah, we can expect a good few games coming up in the foreseeable future, as I would call it, rather than the next few weeks. So we'll go on to the next game. I'll skip a game because we'll discuss about it last. We'll talk about Trinity taking on Sri Sumangala College at Quadrangle. Now, Trinity, they had a tough outing against DS, but to bounce back with 49 points against 14, Trinity have been doing their work back, and they are certainly gunning to go back into that winning form. And I feel like Trinity has come back stronger. They've had a rocky start to the season, but I feel like they're much more in favor of getting their season back on track, and they believe that the season is well ahead of them, and they won't be gutted enough to put this season away. Whereas on Sri Sumangala's side, yet another, as Boa calls it in his own terms, a baptism of fire. They went against another home team. They've been going against Dharmaraja, followed by Trinity. Tough home oppositions to play at, but they also haven't been coming with all wheels running into this season. So what do you think about this game, Boa? How did this game reflect on the two sides?
Trinity is a confidence side. I call it the yo-yo form line. 1 week they're on top, then they go down and bounce back again. So based on that, next week they should have a bad game. Now, that's a hypothetical scenario. It's a statistical pattern I look at. It's like a heartbeat monitor, it's up and down. But I think after what happened last week, it was a good game for Trinity to have, hometown rival. And I know they've played a number of friendly games over the last few years as well. And Sumangala is an enterprising side. I have a lot of time for them. They're actually one of my favorite teams. And I have to give them a bit of a shout out. They scored a tremendous try. They tried a little up and under. It's what we call a Gary Owen. And they got the rewards because they felt that the Trinity last line of defense was a bit suspect. And these things happen. You make fumbles. They did something different, and they got a different result. So well done to them. But I think Trinity, they had some really nice sweeping moves. They're very much a lateral attacking side, and they're a confidence side. So I think this win would have served them very, very well. And it'll probably bring that life back into their fans as well after previous week's, beg your pardon, deflating defeat. But let's keep an eye on Trinity, because I have a feeling, like I said, based on my statistical pattern, the yo-yo, this is going to be a very, very interesting season for them, and they will fire some shots, and they probably might strike when people least expect them to.
Indeed, Boa. Now, from my background, all I hope is that your statistics are wrong in terms of how it should go for Trinity. But let's see. It's all in the hands of the boys from Trinity. So yeah, let's hope they do have not a yo-yo season, but an upward season ahead. But for Sumangala,
it's trending up. It's
yes,
what we call R equals +1, just goes up that way, as opposed to
definitely Boa with his maths knowledge. And for Sumangala, like I said, I was there at the game against Dharmaraja and Sumangala, and the Sumangala scrum half scored a very interesting try. He ran through the fringes when Dharmaraja least expected it, and he got his team to the lead. So Sri Sumangala, a very exciting team to be looking at. And like I said, the competition that they want to be in is now to survive in the A division and try to bring that flair even further, because Sumangala is a very, very, very young side. And they have a number of years ahead of them, and they could only be on the upward rise if they do manage to survive in the A division. So positive days ahead for Sumangala as well. They had a very gutsy performance against Trinity and against all schools. You could see that even in the 70th minute, the Sumangala boys didn't have their heads held down. Even after a flattering defeat, they showed attitude, and they wanted to play more. They wanted to play harder. So for Sumangala, it's a really, as you said, a really good enterprising side. They want to try new things, and it's only going to get better as we progress into the season. Now, the blockbuster of the weekend, I don't know what adjectives I could use to talk about this game. It had everything from a rugby perspective, the closest game of the week, but in terms of everything that happened around it, the aftermath of it, the turmoil that it has created, and everything that has been negatively attained to this game is something that needs a lot of discussion, something that needs a lot of debriefs and understanding. And the implications of this game is going to be very, very high on this season alone. But, that's not my job today. I'm not going to talk about the whole technical aspects and what happened outside of the game or post 70 minutes. We'll talk about what happened in the 70 minutes. This game was like a hometown derby for the boys from Mount Lavinia. Science College taking on St. Thomas's. Science College actually having a very promising season so far. They came in as slightly tipped to be the favorites in everyone's opinion. But St. Thomas's, they were kind of like the silent stallions of the game. But St. Thomas's, they managed to take a hard-fought victory. Their captain was back in action, and they had a pretty well-rounded performance. But in Science College's perspective, all they had to do was to rack up the points when they got it. But the tensions were rising into the last 10 minutes of the game also, where the game became ever so close. And before the so-called tragic incident, I think the brand of rugby that both teams are playing were pretty significantly unique to themselves. So what do you think about the game, Boa? I'm specifically asking you about the game. What do you think about the rugby that was played? And then let's move on to what happened post-rugby.
So last week on the hot seat, I did tip an upset to Science to win by less than 5 points. Well, guess what? We almost had it. I thought they had it. But that's a different matter. Before we get to that, topsy-turvy game, very edge of the seat stuff. Yeah, it was very entertaining. Science, I thought for large parts of the game, they were inaccurate. They were making lots of mistakes. But all of a sudden, the last 10, 15 minutes, they woke up from this slumber. And I think the Thomians just and St. Thomas has had outstanding game in certain, particular that second quarter in the first half, and then the third quarter in the second half. They played some outstanding rugby. They understood what their strengths were. They played to their strengths, and they got the points. And they built that lead. But as they came into that last sort of 12 to 15 minutes, they faded, and Science brought the steam, and they brought the heat, and that meant that it was all on for Donkey Kong, as they say. And we had a photo finish, a very, very exciting finish. And it came down to a play at the death. So outstanding game, very exciting. I think we need more of these derbies. And that last play, the Science player dives over. I certainly thought it was a try, and I'll get to that in a second, because obviously there's speculation, and there's I've seen a couple of still photos of the initial grounding where the Science player's elbow is on the floor and the ball is held up, and that is true and that is correct. But what you have to also understand is the player, as he dived, obviously momentum and physics will tell you that there's going to be some degree of forward sliding, which I thought there was. I looked at the footage. I broke it on software I use called Opta for analysis, and there's about four frames prior to the Thomian defender coming in, sliding in goal, where the ball gets dislodged. And I could also see that the Science player, he rolls his hips to the right infield. Now, had he rolled the other way, then the ball would have, clearly popped up. And of course, we didn't have a TMO. We just didn't have a TMO. There's only one angle. So there's a lot of confusion around that. But I certainly thought there was enough in it. And when these community level games or schoolboy games are refereed without TMOs, you got to go on these clues. And if the referee believed that he truly didn't ground the ball and he lost it, he would have made the call straight away. And the AR or the touch judge was in no position to make any comment or call, because, he was facing the back of the player. So looking at that, I certainly felt there was enough to rule grounding and award the try. But obviously the referee felt otherwise. But again, that's my take on it. It's a free world. Anyone or everyone is free to agree or disagree, and that's the beauty of it. And of course, unfortunately, there was a sponsorship row and the mics were turned off. Everything just happened. I guess it's at the wrong time. Unfortunately, and I have to be very, very vocal about this, is one of the worst days of local schoolboy rugby. It is what happened after the game. A bunch of thugs and hooligans decided to take the law into their own hands and did the cowardly thing by resorting to violence and manhandled and assaulted the referees. It's completely and utterly unacceptable. People like this don't belong anywhere near a game of rugby because they can't control their emotions. They resort to caveman tactics by physically assaulting people. So I have to say this again. I hope the police are onto this, because there's ample evidence, isn't there? There's footage, there's photos. It's been plastered all over the place. So these idiots need to be arrested, and they need to be brought to justice. And the referees need justice. And the referees, we'll talk about this later in the show, but it's the host responsibility to make sure that these referees are looked after. And if there's inadequate security, and the referees don't feel like they don't have enough security, well, then they shouldn't start the game. It's that simple. I have to be very, very firm on this. No one deserves what happened after the game. And I have to be very, very clear. This incident we are discussing, that's a different matter. Okay, that's part of technical analysis we are looking at, and I'm trying to explain why I felt there was sufficient grounds for grounding. But what happened after? That had nothing to do with rugby. That was just pure thuggery. So I just want to make that very clear.
Indeed, Boa. And as any sport goes, the referee or the umpire or whoever is in charge of the game is actually the king of the field. He has a lot of pressure, a lot of weight, but also a lot of power to make those decisions. And in a game of rugby, in a community game of rugby, as we call it in Sri Lanka, the schools rugby outing, I believe that was also against the spirit of the game that was set out by any means. But we at the Rugby Show we've brought in a very special person to discuss more about this, discuss the implications about this, the aftermath of it, and how this will affect not just the host, not just the opposition, but the entire schools community in the weeks to come. It's been a very, very eventful and a very rather intriguing few days, because no one really knows what's going to happen. No one really knows whether we could see another rugby game this weekend. No one really knows whether they need to travel down to Kandy to watch the game or not. But, usually we'll have the hot seat segment by now. But unfortunately, we don't have a few games to play this weekend. Neither do we have my buddy Shavin to have the hot seat. He's busy with a bit of his own work, so he unfortunately couldn't make it for the show. But now I'll hand over the proceedings to our very own 𝗤𝐴𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐴𝐵. He'll take over the special segment where we have a man who knows his job all too well, a man who is synonymous with Sri Lankan rugby. I'll hand it over to 𝗤𝐴𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐴 to introduce our special guest and carry on with the show. That's me signing off. 𝐶𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐴. Over to you, 𝗤𝐴𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐴.
Thank you very much, Bassa. Thank you very much. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. My apologies to everyone who's watching, our lovely viewers, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and to our very own Mr. Boa Athu. Lovely to have you on show again. And yes, I will be taking over from this segment onwards. Thank you, Bassa. And ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for, our special guest for this evening is none other than the current chairman of the Sri Lanka Women's Rugby, as well as stepping down from Sri Lanka Rugby Referee Society back in 2023, which was last year, and a former Trinityan, as I may say, playing as a prop forward position back in 1979 and 1980, and such has been a coach and a referee, who has been the first Asian to referee at the Asian Rugby Finals back in 1990. He's none other than our very own, the one and only SW Chang, who is with us on the call right here. Chang, sir, are you with us?
Yes, I am. How are you?
Lovely to have you back, sir. So to start off, I just want some insight on our very own SW Chang, sir. What are your thoughts on this year's rugby league, schools rugby league, as I may say, the drama to the hectic plays, the games, everything? Just give us your thought, Mr. Chang, sir.
Oh yeah, because I was just having a hi, Boa. Good evening. Good to see you. Good evening, sir. Good evening. Before you start, I just want to give audience a bit of a insight. Mr. S.W. Chang was actually my first club coach at CHNFC. I was playing for Royal College back in 1996, and he had faith in me, and he saw something in me, and he actually gave me a chance to make my club rugby debut whilst I was playing in school. So I'm eternally forever grateful to this amazing man. And I always enjoyed that culture. And of course, as a referee, someone we really respected and looked up to, because back then we didn't have 99% of these issues we are having now, because the gentleman in the middle of the field, there was transparency, there was honesty, there's a lot of respect, a lot of mutual respect. And of course, the rapport they had with the players was tremendous. I still remember, sir, back in 1997, second leg Bradby Shield, Dilroy was refereeing and you were one of the assistant referees. And you said last play about 3 minutes before the last whistle went off. And we were, hoping for the last whistle, but Trinity kick a penalty. Nuwan Fernando, the captain back then, kicks a penalty and wins it for Trinity. But the respect and the banter we had after the game, I still remember. So I just want everyone out there to know that it was a bit of a different world we had back then, and we had a tremendous amount of respect for the referees. And this gentleman is the epitome of what honesty and integrity is in refereeing. So welcome to the show, Mr. Chang. Lovely to have you.
Thank you, Boa. Thank you. It's just that your talent that made mark at the CH, nothing to do with me. It's just talent. Coming back to your question about the league, this thing, with two teams, two groups, I would say, divided. And if you go through the schools team that have played so far, you won't know it before you start the season. It's a schools that whether it's a strong team or a weaker team, Having said that, if you see the group in where Royal, St. Peter's, and Wesley are in, you see that's a tough group. And then St. Joseph is a tough group. And I think the first two goes into the top half after that. But I think the third side there could easily come in from the other side. So it's a bit of a imbalance. I hopefully that they could in the future see that. But having said that, it's very difficult to judge a school team. Now next season, Thurston might be on top. We don't know because it's maybe a young side that is playing and learn from their mistakes and all that. So it's a tough call. I wonder if they find another system to have this tournament.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, sir, because one of the things I suggested prior to the season was the 16 to be split into groups of 4. And then the top 8 go into Premier competition and the bottom 8 go into a cup competition. And that gives, it's more even competition. And I hope when you said that Thurston are going to be better next year, you don't know. Hopefully it's not a case of wholesale importing. It has to be said. But yeah, I certainly think this format is just a little bit, it's creating too many lopsided competitions and it's unfair on some of the bottom tier schools.
Yeah, I don't think Thurston will be importing. I'm sure they have been exporting, I heard. That's what I heard. So.
Let's hope and see, Chang. Let's hope and see. Let's hope and see. Also, Chang, so just to remind everyone, you have coached many schools such as Nalanda, Anand, St. Peter's, Isipathana, Wesley, and St. Joseph's, and also coaching Havelock Sports Club and CNH and Police in Club Rugby. Just want to know, Chang, sir, from your coaching years and as a Trinity and playing for Trinity College for Sydney Rugby, what's the difference you see between these kind of levels of school rugby and the past school rugby where you have coached and played as well? Just a little bit of an insight.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because it's a different era. My playing era days and coaching are different eras. But there are schools that I coach, and some of the schools, it doesn't matter where they stand, they just want to win. That's all that mattered. But some schools, they want to play some good rugby. It didn't matter the results. So you get the mixture of it. But I had ups and downs of coaching schools. Some schools performed, some schools did not perform. And due to various reasons, we had, I think, at the year I coached St. Joseph, we had 9 under-15ers playing in the first 15 team. So no excuse, but I enjoyed thoroughly enjoy myself coaching the kids. And coaching clubs is a different story, it's a different ballgame. So yes, I enjoy my coaching career. It was very nice, good, and get to know people like you all and keep our relationship going, which is the important thing, is to see that you continue your friendship. Rugby and sports is all about that.
SW, wonderful word.
I've just got a quick question. I think there's few people wanting to really jump into this. So Buzz, I'm just gonna circumnavigate you, and I'm gonna jump straight into it. Now,
yeah, sure, go ahead.
SW, last year we were here, same situation, weren't we? We had some drama around refereeing, and then there's a huge outcry. So back to the future, fast forward 365 or so days, here we are. So one of the first questions I have to you is, why do we continually go around in this circle? Why is there no significant improvement, particularly because we can't ignore the fact that one of the key stakeholders, which is the spectators and supporters of the sport, they're forever complaining about the referee. So why do we keep going around this circle, and why do we not see significant improvement?
It's there's a bit of betting that goes along. A lot of things happening. Old boys are very keen to see that their side wins. So that's the problem. You close one eye and have a look at the referee at the game. So as you said, yeah, it's keep coming. History is there to be broken. It's there to be that these things are. Refereeing is not a great thing. It's not a hard thing. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. If you break it down to points, it's very simple. All you got to do is to see that there is a fair contest, right? At the breakdown, fair contest at the scrummager, the restarter, there's a fair contest. That's all you got to see. And if you can communication, prevention, right? And go through and as a referee, I used to sacrifice a lot, right, by training and late nights and all those things. And I'm sure the current referees too do a lot of sacrifices, not spending much time with the family, but they're going through all that. But the spectators need to know that they are doing a thankless job. Now, of course, it's a professional. During our time, it was not a professional thing. It was all purely honorary. And things have changed. With the change, I think the spectators and the players, everyone has to change accordingly. But don't forget, over the years, must not change the shape. The goalpost has not changed the shape. The pitch has not changed the shape. Likewise, attributes to the game will not change. It will never change. And you got to see that you have a disciplined approach to the game as a spectator, as a player, as a referee.
Another thing I wanted to ask was a few days back on my Facebook group, I asked a question because I had so many messages around trust issues and why people don't trust referees. And the question I asked was, do you trust referees to do a fair and just job? A staggering 94% of respondents said no, they don't trust them. Only 6 point something percent said, yeah, we do trust them. Why do you think that there's so little trust in referees in 2024? Whereas I can recall, sir, back when you and that golden age of your peers were refereeing, we actually trusted you to do a good job as players, and the spectators, by and large, respected and trusted yourselves as individuals and trusted the process. So why do you think there's a lack of trust here?
I think we are in a different zone as on the whole as a country, right? We're in a different zone. So our attitudes and things are different to what the others look at. If you look at the game abroad, it's a different story. The skill level is high, and the refereeing skill level becomes very easy when the skill level is high to control it. To answer your question, I think with the monetary gains coming in, right, the coaches are being paid so much high, this thing, and the referees are being paid very highly, and not as much as the coaches. But the coaches, how do you keep the job? They need a big W to keep the job. People don't understand that. These are kids. They are there to entertain the crowd, entertain themselves, to enjoy their game and build their own memory. So what in those days, it was a game. Now, when we used to play, it was social rugby virtually. Then it changed professional. When it comes to professional, then what happens? It becomes competitive. So when the competitiveness comes in, it comes at winning at all costs. So you looked at the referee in a different angle. And my advice to the referees, if they are looking at a different angle, don't be seen at social bars, at social events. Just have your own thing at home so that people won't listen. I'll share you one incident. I won't mention the name or anything. There was a junior coach. We had an issue with him, and he was having a drink after training every day or something, and the word came around. And then when I addressed the issue, he said, "Sir, it's after my coaching." I said, "No, because you are recognized as a coach of this school. You're not recognized by your name. So if you go and have a thing like that, they say, oh, that's the division referee who's refereeing the match. Look at the way he's behaving." See, that kind of social thing has crept in. And with those cameras and all these things coming in, they take photographs and all that. So you've got to be careful. So if you do that, and if you're seen at a particular place, then the people will say, oh, he's been brought over by them. That's a mentality. They're not. But that's the mentality. So when that mentality goes in, while watching a game and your side is not doing well, the scapegoat is the referee. So that's the reason. So people don't trust because of that, and for them winning at all costs. That's the issue.
Indeed, Chang sir, wonderful words, wise words from a past referee as well as coach. Also, Chang sir, this is a question again back to you, as you've, I hope you recently seen the Isipathana match against Dharmaraja as well as the Science College and St. Thomas match, where two games where, as you said, the referees weren't on their best level, if I say. And let's just get back to Science and College. I believe Boa has spoken his words as well upon these two matches as well. Just to talk to you, Chang sir, do you think, let's come to the Patna Dharmaraja match, that those two yellow cards, it wasn't two yellow cards given for a specific reason. Me and Boa are trying to figure it out. Any insight on that, Chang sir? Why the yellow cards were given? Because it was clearly not a reason to. If Boa can agree with me.
No, I saw that clip. It's very difficult to understand why that was, and especially I don't much go on the first one. It's a referee's call. Like you say, umpire's call on a LPW. It's a referee's call whether he moved away or not. So sometimes the players don't go from south to west. They just go from north to south. From east to west. They go from north to south. So you delay the ball a bit. It can be a referee's call, right? Like the St. Peter's Wesley match where Wesley was penalized in the second half for not supporting their body weight on their feet, but rather getting support from the ground. So that's his call. So likewise, but the second one, I think the captain has all the right to ask why the penalty was given. Go through. So that's baffled me a lot. Why the second card came in immediately, but. It's a matter that they are, of course, the rolling away. It's a referee's call on that. I hope Boa will agree. But the second one actually baffled me why he was given the yellow there.
SW, with the rolling east to west or west east, whichever way you call it, I think, look, that was textbook. I have to disagree with you on that. The Isipathana blindside flanker. That was textbook. The tackle, perfect chop tackle, very legal. And then he was sliding. He got back on. He rolled away beautifully, got back onto his feet and retreated to the behindmost foot, which was the next arriving player, the skipper, the number 8, who went straight for the jackal. And you could see his hips and legs were spread nice and wide apart, solid base, solid foundation. And this sort of technique now, as a coach, I work very hard, diligently with my back rowers here, and this is a really difficult technique to actually coach and for players to execute on game day. So for me, the real tragedy was that really high quality technique and high quality play is being penalized. And also, as far as the yellow cards go, I have my general take on yellow cards is, if I had the chance to steal those cards off the referees, I would, because I feel that local referees are very trigger happy and they go to the pocket far too easily, and it just kills the game, kills the competition. Now, mercifully, the game was a lopsided game. Isipathana was leading 46, almost 46 zip. But had this happened in a really tight contest, like say for example St. Peter's or Royal, you could have imagined what the consequences would have been. So I think, just as general rule, I don't feel very comfortable at all at our referees going to the pocket all the time. And I think this is, let's treat this as a learning. Let's treat this as a learning. The clip is there. We're discussing this now. I just hope the referees humble themselves a little bit and say, you know what, we sort of didn't get that quite right. We'll learn from this, and we just move forward.
Yeah, I know. I think prevention is better than cure. That's the key. And you're right. I gave the benefit of the doubt to the referee, and if I was on the pitch that day, and I would have actually applauded him and said, "Well done." That's the way to go. Because on the long run, what happens is Sri Lanka will lose out at the national level when you get penalized for doing the correct thing. So they will be very scared to, because every competition that we face in the Asian region will need this kind of turnovers if you want to make an impact. So if this boy at that 18 years gets blown for doing the right thing, then we are going to lose out at the national level.
I agree, 100%. Very well spoken.
Yes, me too, Chang sir. It's just that the Isipathana captain was so humble that he accepted the yellow card, even though he just literally asked the referee why was the yellow card given. Indeed, so humble of the captain of Isipathana College, Chang sir. It can't be helped. So it's, as you said, Chang sir, referee's call is a referee's call. He can't go above it. It's his call, basically, it's his decision. And on that point, Chang sir, coming back to the Science Thora match where that red card was given at the final whistle, after the final whistle, basically, when the number 13, spoke back to the referee, and the red card was given, and the spectators joining in, which shouldn't have been the case. Just want to know your insight, Chang sir. I believe, Boa, if you want, you can chip in after Chang sir. Just to clear that out, what are your thoughts? Because this is what everyone's been talking about for the past almost a week now. If Boa would agree with me, it's a long topic. If you shared posts, photos, I think there's letters coming up. And people are really, really upset. They want to know what's the reason for this. If you agree, they want to know the exact reason. I'm trying to be open. I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just your thoughts, Chang sir.
I was just told about the red card thing. Boa will correct me if I'm wrong. I think the referees still have the authority and this thing to show a card even after leaving after the final whistle, because they're still in the playing enclosure. I think there is a law on that. And I was told that he has abused the referee in not good language, and that's why the referee has given a red card. And that's the reason. So I'm not so sure about it, and I hope the referees have sent the report in for the red card, and the school disciplinary committee will sit down and take its own course of action, because that's how it works. And the World Rugby has a step by step. They got step by step, but referee abuse, referee assault, all those things. How many weeks, how many months the player will be suspended. So it's left up to them to decide once the report goes in. But my message to the people who assaulted the referee is that absolute cowards. You don't get together 30 people and assault one man. It's like hitting an 80-year-old man, or for that matter, they are catching me, an old man like me, and clobbering me. So it's absolutely coward. You don't expect that kind of thing. Whatever the reason, maybe the try was scored or this, you don't do that. You don't take it to the hands and this. They should be not taking the law into the hand. They should take the law book into the hand.
Yeah, 100%. SW, look, with this whole red card business after the look, I certainly, in all my years of being part of this game, I haven't experienced anything like that. But you're right. If the referee feels, and there are provisions, I think on Regulation 17 in the World Rugby book, if anything is done which will spoil the spirit of the game, the referee is well within his rights or her rights to sanction. So I think there's probably a little bit of raw emotion there as well. As far as this child, the number 13, verbally abusing the referee, Now, I watched the footage. It was very clear. The referee came up to him. He had his other assistants and officials with him. And then he spoke to him. And then the number 13, put his head down and he walked away. That's, again, I'm only telling you what I saw. And then later I see that they have demanded that he's suspended for no lesser than 1 year. So now, again, there has to be a proper judicial hearing for referee abuse, okay? And then there are set out sanctions depending on whether it's a top end offense or a moderate offense or a bottom end offense. So I think we have to allow due procedure and due process to go through. Trying to predetermine these things is not going to help anyone. Okay. And end of the day, this is a child, this is a school child, right? I am dead against trying to castigate schoolboys and try to treat them like hardened criminals or adults like Alfred Soiza or whoever, because that's just wrong. It's plain wrong. They're learning, so we need to have some perspective on this. Okay, so I think there's more information needs to come out on that. As far as the idiots who decided, or the cowards, the idiotic cowards who decided to take the law into their own hands, what they have now done is jeopardize science, rugby future, in no uncertain terms. And again, I saw some correspondence. Now, nothing has been confirmed or denied, but there was a suggestion that the referees will not officiate all science games for a period of a year or 2 years from under 10 upwards. I mean, we're talking about children who are 9-year-olds who haven't even come into the game, who want to get into the game, and they're being penalized because of some idiot on the sideline. So I think, again, we just need to have some common sense here rather than just get too emotional. I understand, the referees will be feeling quite raw and hurt, and justice has to be served. But I think we just need to have some perspective here, and also some minimum standards need to be addressed as far as host responsibility for security. But again, all these things have been discussed well, and unfortunately, it looks like it's fallen through the cracks, and it didn't happen on Sunday. So to be clear, we have, as a community, we have to condemn violence. Violence is never the answer. But all these other problems around refereeing, the quality of it, the frequency of, getting the very simple things wrong, we have to have a proper dialogue in a civilized manner and actually come up with solutions. One of the things I would suggest is, we have to look at better, more structured training and education. And, there's almost 400 to 500 million rupees worth of sponsorships which goes into this competition. And I think all the schools need to work together and proportionately look at putting some money aside so that we can get a structured, for example, getting people like yourself to mentor some of these referees so where we can take, your time can be compensated. And there has to be a proper follow through. This is not going to solve itself overnight. It might take 3 to 5 years. And also from a recruitment point of view, past players, I think schools need to assist by trying to get past players who are willing to actually take up the whistle and get them into the system. And there's got to be a proper quality training system. I'm a World Rugby coach educator here, and the amount of time we spend coaching our coaches so that they can be the best version of the coach is phenomenal. So I think there's got to be some and we can't pretend that what is being taught is the right thing. Clearly, there's something wrong there that needs to be inspected. And I think this is what I keep saying. People need to humble themselves so that they create a learning environment. There's a reason why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So rather than try to say that, no, we know what we're doing, you've got to humble yourself and actually take some quality advice on board and look at putting a proper training. So sorry, I just went on a bit of a rant there, but I feel very strongly and I care very deeply about this. Hence why I put this out there.
Oh, boy, you're right. You're absolutely right. As you said, that 2 years and a mouth, and he put the brain in center of the 2 years, so you take it in and then record it. But you're absolutely right. We need some training. We need super training. The referees society has got money, right? They have enough funds. Okay, all they got to do is expose these referees out of Sri Lanka, bring the I mean, we have referee trainers who are very good. There's no doubt about that. But bring someone who is different, who don't know the referees, so that they will have a go at it and they watch them and say, okay, fine, these referee, this, you know. And so it's a foreign voice. It's an independent voice. It's a voice that they have not been hearing every time. Like you get foreign coaches coming in, no? Some of the teams get their consultants coming in, talking to them, training them, and all those things. So that's what you got to do. You know, you're right. Our refereeing needs to uplift the standards. I'm of course a bit shocked on certain things where they don't do the preventive method, rather than they're happy to blow the whistle and give penalty after penalty. No, that's not the thing. Do you go for a match to see the penalties, or you will go for the match to see the tries? That's the question. We need to see tries. So the referees are doing a. I mean, they are on the ball, but they need to step up. They need to step up, not one step, more than one step. They need to step up, and they need to be. They can be a force together, but those things don't matter at all. It's how you perform on that day. Sometimes even the teams don't play good rugby. The referee can make a game out of it by communicating, by letting the play go and talking to them. They be a conductor. They don't be a cop on the field. They're not a prefect on the field. They become a conductor of the orchestra, where you smoothly let the players do their job. Like you say, okay, play the violin, play the drums, play that. You let it go with a smile and have a fair contest at every given point.
Indeed, Chang, sir. Wonderful words. I hope the Rugby Referee Society's head, Mr. 𝐷𝐴𝐴𝐿𝐴𝐿, is listening to us right now as we speak. I hope so. Just a quick reminder to all our viewers before we continue. All our viewers, if you have any questions, any questions that need answered, please drop comments on our live Facebook and the live stream here on YouTube. And let's get further questions. Chang, sir, there's been a talk that the one thing, the referee officials will not officiate Science College rugby from under 10 onwards for about a good year or two. And as you said, as Boa said, the suspension of the number 13 is valid. He took it, the number 13 guy took it very humbly, as I saw it on the live videos. He took it very humbly, accepted it. It's just that, is it fair, Chang, for the younger kids to get suspended just because the spectators who are not in school, who are like outside of the game, who are outside the school, is it fair for the younger kids who are interested, eager, they are so pumped up to play this season, but then lost it? I don't think it's a fair game from the referee side as well, Chang. It's just that, what just like Boa said, these are young kids, and as Chang said, these referees should be conductors. Kids make mistakes, and the referees are there to correct them, not to punish them, not to throw them away. Just to insight, Chang, is it fair though from the under 10, as Boa said? Why is it happening like this? Should it be done like this? Or should the referee society just give a week's time so that the referees who were injured, leave them aside, let them recover? It was said that they have to be recovered and they have to be mentally stable in order to start the league again. I was not quite sure. That's why it was the talk around. Just your thoughts, Boa and Chang, if you all can.
I think Boa was right. I don't think it's very unfair to punish the 10s, the 40s, the 16s, you know. And I think if you see the scenario, if you are not going to blow Science games, and if Science is playing Trinity in Kandy, it's unfair by Trinity too, because they did nothing and they are getting this thing, they're getting the blame. So my question is, why they have to work it out and see that something is done, right? And okay, some sort of punishment they're talking about. Talk to the authorities and go and draw up something and punish the team on some other way without punishing. They have to play a game with other lot. Lose their home team. Stop the spectators. Say that when Science plays, there are no spectators when they are home team, right? Do something like that. But don't stop refereeing their games. Don't stop refereeing the other ones. I know the feeling. I have been there. You know, it has happened in the many years ago. Many times ago, it had happened. It had happened and happened and happened, as Boa knows about it. You know, there's a saying in Sinhala, "Niyapotten karan timuneka than poroyen kadano." You know, so like that, we should have dipped that in the bud at that time, right? But things have changed. We have two factions. We have factions. Everybody is trying to do this, do that, everything. So we need to get together and say, okay, this has happened. Now, what do you want to do? If one referee has a bad call, are you going to punish all the international or top division referees for one referee's fault? No, you're not. You have to take him to task. You can't take the others to task, right? But this is so severe that the assault was so severe. It's because you remember there was a player who assaulted a referee on the field while the game was on. Now think about that. What happened? Referees came back and refereed in 1 week's time on there. Right? A player assaulting a referee on the field. So I'm not saying.
Yeah, just sorry to interrupt. Just to add on to that, I think, look, I can understand the emotional state and mental wellness is really important for the referees, and I feel for them. In fact, I was one of the first people to publicly say that if the safety and security is not guaranteed for the referees, don't start the game. It's that simple.
Yeah.
But as far as sanctions go, and trying to basically say that we're not going to referee any of these science games, particularly the young children's games, I see a little bit of double standards and hypocrisy, because you're right. This assault of a player that involved was a Josephine, and was in full view, and then they came back. And then a few years back, I think the current president, Dinka, he was refereeing. It was a Royal Wesley game, and there was an all-out brawl between two fractions, and the referee was verbally abused. I've seen the videos. In fact, it's probably sitting in my cloud somewhere. And it was terrible. Dinka was walking back and he was being abused. But then again, the powers that be, influential people got involved, and we went back to normal. And then, of course, there was a very famous. There's meme after meme on the internet. A woman spectator at a Trinity game assaulted a referee. But there was no threat of boycotting the Trinity game. So I think, look, I understand that there is a lot of emotion, but I think we just need to take a deep breath here. And I'm actually calling out the schools association. They need to start showing some, leadership and backbone. Look after these referees, because without referees we can't play the game. It's that simple. So we have to do everything to ensure their safety and security. And I guess I empathize with the referees, because I guess the reason they're responding in this manner is because they feel that no one's actually looking after them. That's why they come up to these, relatively outrageous suggestions saying we're not going to do this. So I can understand. I can understand the emotion is raw. So I think the powers that be, they need to act quickly and make sure that they guarantee the safety of and security of the referees. Because if they don't do that, we're going to go back to the same scenario. Once the rugby starts, everyone will forget about this, that it never happened. And I have to say, in Sri Lanka, people have very short memories, unfortunately. And they move on to the next problem. So I think this is where the issue is.
Yeah, actually, Bob, I was thinking about it. It was a nightmare, right? It was an absolute nightmare, what happened. So I was thinking about it. The referees, normally you don't start a game if there is no security, although the letter is given. Now, I saw a clip somewhere, somebody has said that once a letter is given, we don't normally check. We trust the letter, right? Having said that, when two principal of schools signs the team card and gives to you, you're checking the team, right? You check the team before the game. You check the ID cards. But the school principals have signed their documents. So likewise, you got to start, the match commissioner should check, is this in order? Because when I was at the Trinity 𝗏𝗏 game up in Kandy, the doctor had not arrived for the under-16 game, and they didn't start. They waited. They didn't start, right? Because the people involved checked whether the doctor is there. So likewise, they should have checked whether security was there or not. Is the letter, anyone can give a letter. I refereed a B division match after I had given up and all that and came and refereed a B division match. and there was no doctor. One fellow came and said, "Oh, I'm the doctor." I said, "Okay, thank you very much." I couldn't check his credential. I didn't see his certificate. But down the line, after about 3-4 years, he's coming and telling me, "Sir, how are you? I'm not a doctor. I'm just a, I'm just an ex-player." So I mean, we can laugh now. We can laugh now. So these are good experience that it happens. I think the referees must sit down, because now they are not angry. They're cooled themselves down, get down and do the things that they can do, and see that they come back to refereeing. And of course, the schools association have to do something drastic to see that they are safe. And the old boys must need to know there are kids that are playing, right? They're children, they're maybe grandchildren, nephews, and they're kids that are playing the game. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. As much as they miss the penalty, the referees will miss something. But referees are not supposed to miss, because they have the AR with them, right? They should make the correct call, right? So just advice to cool it down and then see what we can do about it and get back. But totally I don't agree with under 10s being penalized, under 14s being penalized. It's not a D thing.
Yeah,
Indeed, Chang, indeed. I hope the head of the Referee Society, Mr. 𝐷𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐴, can hear us and probably get some insight from this as well. Let's just, should I say, Boa and Chang, so let's just give this a week, give a week or two, or whatever time they have given in postponing the rugby league. Let's just think of this as a time to refresh on both the school side and the Referee Society side. I don't know if I may say, if you'll agree with me. Let's just hope and see. I hope the referees get recovered soon. Not that we hate the referees. Let's hope that they recover soon. They have a positive state of mind. And let's just remind them that once again, they are handling kids. They're not handling national rugby players. They're not handling international players. They're handling not little kids. Such as myself, I was a kid. I would understand how it was to obtain a yellow card or a red card. Let's just have this. I hope 𝐷𝐿𝐴𝐴 can hear me and reduce it for like a week of postponing instead of going further. Whereas I just heard it that younger kids, Chang said, if you didn't know, they have their O-levels, they have their exams. Some even have A-levels on the line, and they are somehow sacrificing to play for Trinity rugby because they love the school, they love the game. And this postponing things only make it difficult. Again, I was a student, and I understood the difficulties of having A-levels and sacrificing sports as well. I hope Chang and Boa Athu had the same experience as well. So let's just, I just pleadly ask if the Federation Societies can minimize for like a week, give time for all the referees to clear their mind, clear mentally and physically. And let's hope for a good game once they reopen. Just before we wrap up the session of the live rugby show, any message or any advice, Boa, to whether you want to give, or Chang sir, one of you, if you want to give right away, now is your time to fire away.
Yeah, I'll let Boa do that. And before that, I hope you don't hate the referees, because you'll be hating me too then, because I was a referee too once upon a time. But
there's no hate on this show. It's just love.
There is no hate. There is no hate.
It's all love. It's all about love.
Exactly.
And here's a message for everyone. Next time when we restart the rugby, when the referees come out, just give them a round of applause, because they do a thankless job. Like I keep saying, this is a complex issue. Without referees, we can't play, right? Without players, we can't play. Without spectators, they're all a big part of it. So there's a solution here. But the most important thing right now is host responsibility. And the referees, please, if you feel that there is inadequate security or you feel threatened, don't start the game. It's that simple. Address that issue, because no one deserves to be physically assaulted and violence, put upon them. That's just, it's taking things back to the caveman age. If there's a problem, we have to have dialogue and discussion. There are official means, there are official channels. And again, this is something I'm going to call the schools out and coaches on, is because if you feel aggrieved with the referees, there's an official channel. Go down that road. But for some reason, that never gets taken up, because people are afraid to have a grown-up conversation like what we are having now. And
sorry to disturb you. That's because of the the coaches feel that it makes no sense taking it up. Nothing happens after that. As much as you said, the schools have to step up security. The referees have to set up about their refereeing standards. They have to, they have to do that, and they need more training, as you said. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mean, safety is everyone's responsibility, and this is a very complex issue, and this is not going to solve itself overnight. But the most important thing right now is we have to ensure safety and security for the referees so that they feel safe walking out to the pitch, doing their job. And soon after the game is over, there has to be proper security to ensure that they come. I know this is a very sad indictment on the schoolboy game because, this is school kids playing each other and there's a threat of physical violence, but that's what it's come down to now. So make sure the referees are looked after first and foremost. This cannot happen ever again. And there has to be minimum standards and someone has to administer this properly and make sure that the refs are looked after and they're safe. This is non-negotiable. And then, of course, the other aspects, as you said, SW, it's everyone's responsibility. And then if we can have improvements bit by bit, and of course, it's host responsibility to ensure that, there's always a small minority population in the spectators at the ground. They'll always resort to something stupid. There's not a lot you can do about it. But, if we get better as different stakeholders in what we do, I think we can, fix this bit by bit. That's the positive side in me talking. The negative side says this is not very fixable, not least tomorrow or day after. But at least, we're having this conversation.
Well, we can do it. It's not possible. I mean, the other thing is to imagine how you are not you are not agreeing to be wired to the commentators thing. I mean, those are basic things that you require so that you can listen to the communication. People can listen. They will know what the law is about, what has happened, and everything. But if you are not going to be wired, then I just can't understand. You're talking about. I saw a clip about him addressing the referees, the president, and saying that our voice cannot be given. We have to be sponsored or something like that. I think they'll have to try that competition. They have this voice for something like that, where you turn the chairs when the voice is good. You might have to go there and make your mark.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the spectators as well, because this is a pay-per-view situation. Now people have to pay to watch it. So spectators viewers at home have every right to have a gripe with the broadcaster and ask the question, hey, we paid for a certain product and we're getting, 70% of what you promised us. So there's all those commercial aspects as well. And I think being stubborn and look, I'm not trying to pick on the referees. I believe it or not, I love our refs. It's just that I'm very black and white, and sometimes I come across like sandpaper. Because if there's an issue, I'll bring it out in the open. But that's a different matter. But with the referees, I think the dialogue, and this is where ironic dialogue. The dialogue with dialogue and the dialogue with the school section. The school section needs to ensure that these referees are looked after. And once they feel safe and secure, we're going to see a very different side to it. And I know a lot of people like to, give Dinka a hard time, but, the little bit of comms I've had with him, he's been very forthright. And, when he feels that someone's trying to communicate with him, he's always willing to reciprocate back. So I think maybe that's the cue. So, yeah. Sorry, Chang, sir, please go ahead.
No. What I want to say is that, if the rugby union or the school section says, okay, this is what the tournament is going to be, and you're going to be wired to the this thing, they have to follow suit. Because I'll tell you, I went to referee I was at the Hong Kong Sevens officiating, and my boot had a different name. I wore a different boot, and the sponsors were of a different kind, and they wanted me to cover that name of the boot before I went onto the pitch. That because they were sponsored by a different bootmaker. Now, if I had told them, I got these boots free from them, I'm sponsored by that company, I am not going to remove them. You go to hell, right? They would have told me, pack your bags and go home. So you see, you have to fall in line with the tournament things. It's not about getting money, you see. So you have to fall in. So those things are very important to fall in line with these things. And it's nice to have all this stuff. And hopefully, as you said, let's have the referees back and give them the assurance. I have gone through these mails before, and it has, come into ugly scenes. And to the cowards, I think the cowards should be banned for life for not coming to, that they should be not allowed to come and watch any game for life. And it should be done in courts so that they will be banned for watching any game at any grounds. That's what the message we should give.
And I sincerely hope the police do their job and arrest these idiots and, put them in front of court and, prosecute them. And then once they're found guilty, they'll have to face potentially, I would suspect, jail time, because that's what they deserve. So yeah, just to wrap it up, I think this is a complex issue, okay. But as far as the most immediate thing, we got to ensure the safety of the security. I know I'm been going on about this, but this is a broken record. The reason I'm saying this is, one, obviously these men, NP men, need to feel safe, and of course we want to try and restart the rugby as soon as we can, because there's a lot of other schools who are being unfairly penalized. And their preparations, and the resources they put and the expectations, the children's parents, the spectators, all that has to be put because of this. So, thanks to a few idiots and thugs and hooligans on the sideline, this has jeopardized this whole competition, which, by the way, I have to say, has all the bells and whistles. I think the only other two schoolboy competitions around the world which has this much bells and whistles is a South African competition and probably the Fijian competition. Like even here in New Zealand, we don't have this level of resource and this amount of bells and whistles. Every game, everyone lines up, they sing the anthem. There's so many cameras. It's mind blowing. So let's see everything done to make sure there's a safe transition and a safe resumption of the game and competition we all so dearly love.
Yeah, because we had a great of rugby great Sir Graham Henry came for the Bradby, and he was blown away. He was just carried away, with the atmosphere. And Jonathan Kaplan, who came and refereed the match, he said, "Oh my gosh, I never thought that Sri Lanka rugby was at this standard, at this level." So I think we got to secure that and move forward, right? No 100%. Point pointing fingers at this and that and all that. No point. It's just a move forward, and everybody should be on the same page, and also take the correct advice, as Boa said, that we have take the correct advice, be humble, and accept your fault and move on.
Indeed, Chang sir, indeed, Boa Athu. And that marks the end of our Rugby Live show. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop in to Chango's Parkview restaurant in order to meet Chang sir for further more questions. The best Chinese food in town, guarantee, if Boa would agree, 100%. The best food in town.
100%.
Yes, indeed. For all the further questions, please head down there. And I just want to give a big thanks to Pape.com and Dialogue for allowing us to use their highlights and whatever possible in order to make this rugby show happen. A big shout out to Dialogue and the Pape.com, and somewhat of a shout out to the Referee Society. I hope they do a good job, Chang sir. I hope you would agree with me. A big shout out, and I hope those referees recover, and hope to see them back in action in the next upcoming matches ahead. And indeed, if all the spectators now have a bit of insight on what to do right now, take it easy on the referees, let them do their job, because finally it's a referee decision. And I hope the referees take it easy on the kids who are playing, as to remind all again, these are younger kids. And any final words from Boa and Chang sir?
I'm sure Boa will have a final word.
It's only a game of rugby played among school children. There's more to life than chasing a rugby ball. So take it easy, enjoy, make great memories, and above all, respect each other as human beings.
Wonderful. Beautiful, Mr. Boa. Beautiful, Boa. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that will be all for today. And as your host, my name is Chang 𝐷𝐴𝐺𝐴, along with our rugby statspert, Boa Athu, all the way from New Zealand, and HW Chang, all the way from Parkview Restaurant. This is Quadrangle. Sign off. Take care for now.
God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Stay blessed.
Hey, have you heard about Z?
ZZ.
𝐊𝐴
Easy. Mobile banking. Crazy.
Education loans and salary advances.
Amazing.
Introducing the digital youth account. NDBZ. NDBZ from NDB Bank. The future is banking on us.
Creamy richness redefined. Smooth, soft, spreadable. Introducing Ultra Soft Fondre with canola and sunflower oil.
We search the world for the finest things for you. Things like sun-kissed European berries, rich chocolate from the world's best cocoa fields, and crisp cashews and fluffy marshmallows in a quirky Australian recipe.
𝐊𝐿𝐴 experience the world.
හැමදේම අතළඟ තියෙද්දි දුක් විඳින්නේ ඇයි?
Body roll.